All right, it's your artist, always known as Alejandro, the man, the myth, the legend in my own mind. Now we are doing Carlina. We're sketching Carlina. She's one of my creations. She's a faun. Now I started it in pencil, just a rough outline. I wanted to just play around with it because pencil is my superpower. And initially, this is not the final sketch, but I wanted to break her body down and have her in this fighting stance initially. So as always with these, if we're going to go into the digital realm, we're going to lighten that layer. But here, I'm not going to do another pencil layer. I'm going full on into my ink layer. So I think I can do this and get what I need for her. I lower this a little bit, and we'll start inking her face. Just kind of pulling the lines, kind of following what I did in this little sketch. Kind of a rough sketch, just to get an idea of where everything lines up. Obviously, this won't be the final result, but as with a lot of these things, you may start off going one way and then find yourself going in another direction. Initially, I wanted her kind of like almost being inspired by the Olympics going on right now, kind of in a speed skating pose. Like she's rounding that corner, and so she's running. But I thought, oh, this pose would be kind of interesting. But we abandoned that anyway. Here I just kind of said, let me just do the mouth, and then we'll kind of do the lips separately. This is not the end-all be-all, and I know already looking at this like, wow, this is not up to my standards here, but the hell with it. Let's just move along. She looks like she's looking into the sun. Not very heroic. But the reason I'm drawing Carlina for this particular week is that I am moving on to her story. She's featured along with 5 other of my cosmic heroes, champions. Now, the team she belongs with, I actually gave them a name calling them the Enchanters. Yes. Yeah, here come the Enchanters. Woohoo! Are they performing at the Hollywood Bowl? Seriously, does that sound like a super team? A super team created by a 14-year-old? Yes. But still, the thing kind of holds with her team or her comrades. They're based in kind of fairy tale lore, mythological stuff. And the leader's a wizard. Pyrene was part of them in an alternate universe, right? I've told you that. Look at her video. Also, the wizard has a son and daughter. The daughter's a sorceress, and the son's a archer with a magical bow. I did have a male faun. Called him Drell. But, I mean, it just seems like when I did these, I always had to have like a mate for everybody. And so if there was, I created Drell first. And Drell had the typical pan flute, and that was it. He could shoot darts from it. And in one story, I think he found some guy running in the woods, and he found this dead female faun, and he cried, and his tears revived her. Yeah, that's it. Talk about deep storytelling ideas. Yeah. As I Now, Carlina had a crossbow. I mean, she might still have it. I figure that seems like a little, you're kind of running around the woods. Never know what kind of dangers lurking around in the enchanted woods. Have some kind of weapon. A pan flute might not work. Even if you shoot darts from it, I'm not so sure. You have to draw it, put it towards your mouth, and then take aim. And how far do the darts go, and how lethal are they? Maybe I might use that for her. Bottom line is, Drell is out. Carlina stays. Now, initially in this story, I was going to have another character who was elvish. Not Elvish Presley, baby. Elvish, an elf. And maybe, I don't know if I'll use her someplace else. I'm kind of incorporating some of the things because I was looking up the powers of a faun. They have some influence over nature. They can communicate with animals. I'm like, okay, that's what I was kind of aiming for with the elf. But Carlina was being left high and dry. I don't know if I ever mentioned Spooky Central. For long story short, I had created a story with my characters from Homecoming in Transylvania High, which was a play that I wrote, dinner show. And I said, ooh, it'd be cool if characters wind up there. And Carlina was one of them. And as I was going to do that story next. But as I'm writing it, it doesn't fit with the overall theme of this. Because if they wound up in, which I'm calling now Spooky Central, they would, this is horrible, what was I thinking? Eyes are my nemesis. So back to the drawing board, haha. As I was writing it, it just didn't seem like now Carlina and the others would have to go to school with these kids. Because it's teenagers and you got your teenage monsters, and I had written a whole story and actually it was kind of interesting. But at the same time, it just didn't seem to fit. There weren't that big enough stakes. Them being in school, having to go to school, I do like, what? Why would they do that? And so I'm not going to do that story. The story might work for just those characters in Spooky Central. The eyebrows pissing me off. You know what that means? I just kind of say the hell with it and just do what I need to do here and just deal with that. But here is where I said, you know what? I wanted to incorporate her having some movement. We've seen so many stances with characters lately. I wanted some movement. So I have her in mid-stride running in the forest. So, of course, I had to adjust the body, but I wanted this kind of like nice leaping pose with her. You could see her hooves. And let's do the face a little more. I just want to get a rough outline of the face here. Kind of adjust things. And I just decided to duplicate the layer. So this way I can just trace over it. I'm not worried about drawing on this layer. I just wanted this as a guide. And sometimes you just have to trust your instincts, your artistic abilities that you already have. Sometimes I get so caught up in the lines, and you want your things to be as anatomically accurate as possible. Because, her upper body is woman. It's female, young female. And the lower part is goat. So I did look up some artwork of a faun, a female faun. Got a little inspiration for some of the ways to draw her in details. And ultimately her outfit. Because originally she was topless. And her hair covered her bare boobies. It seems a little preposterous. Then again, I was a hormonal 14, 15-year-old when I created her. So of course I wanted to have suggestive action so I can draw boobies. But it's not practical in battle. No. So just going back to the mouth. Yeah, I gotta fix this mouth. Going back to the abandoning the spooky central idea. Like, well, I still want to use Carlina. I like her. I like the idea of a faun. You know, it's something different. Half person, half goat. Well, where can I throw her? I'm like, okay, so if I abandon this line, this storyline, now what? Well, then sure, I think I've mentioned it on some of my videos. My Earth planet is called Etheria. It's like, I wanted my own planet that's similar to Earth, but not Earth. So here you can break rules, man. Yeah. You know, I have superheroes existing for decades. I have aliens living on our planet for decades. Generations. So I'm saying, okay. You know, you could change the rules. You know, you don't have to be structured to be stuck with the structure of what other people have. Like you have to put things in New York City. You have to have a president of the United States. You have to have these world powers. You have to have these kind of customs, these races. Like, okay, no. Let's start from scratch. We'll have a mixed bag of people and such still, but like what happens if aliens lived on our planet for generations? I think, yeah, I explained it with Chrysilla in Squadron 6. So the storyline that Carlina's part of, in Fight to Save the Universe, that name might be changed. But the storyline where she's going to now appear is, I call it OG6. As I mentioned with Chrysilla, she's part of Squadron 6. 6 heroes chosen that were kind of down on their luck beings, granted powers to help save the planet. But the origins of how they got their powers were from this orb. Those go back maybe a few centuries ago. Yeah. Her horns were initially these little buds, tiny little horns. And I'm like, oh. Then I saw some, yeah, this is what initially, but I'm like, that seems too similar to like devil's horns and Pyrene. Here I wanted to do something. I was trying other ideas. They look like ears. I figured just a curved, slightly curved. It still looks cool. She still looks feminine. Let's do that. Sticking with that. And I put my horns on their own layer, as well as her hair. Here I just played around with a bunch of brushes with her hair. I thought it was kind of fun to just play around with this stuff, but I think I went like with a, I don't even know what I use, like an Indian ink or something. But here I'm just playing around just to get an idea of where the hair is going to lie. Because I gave her some very curly, frizzy hair. I'm just like, I'm trying to think who you might know who would have that hair. And first thing I'm thinking is Adrienne Barbeau, but most of you don't know who that is, but some of you know that kind of frizzy hair. But anyhow, again, this is just kind of getting an idea of where I want the hair to flow and how much hair I need. It's a good basis. I was getting pleased with this. Just kind of fine tuning, getting those lines. All right. Now, just have to adjust her near her butt. That's the other thing. You do this long enough, you kind of have an idea where anatomy should lie. Not all the time. You know, I have my issues with lining up shoulders and head and all that, and eyes, of course. Face gets me. But here, I got a pretty good idea. There were some good images that I drew inspiration from to get her legs right. So anyhow, may have said the origin before, but the original 6. Going back centuries, there was a kingdom led by King Tatamus, and he had a sorceress named Murdermax. They lived in harmony. It was a very peaceful society. And a wormhole opens in space, and out come these Wargonthians that invade the planet. They're the bad guys, the Wargonthians. They just lay waste to everything. They don't care what. They're kind of like almost xenomorphic looking creatures, part crab, bull, almost like slug. They're nasty. And they just want to conquer and terraform. They're nasty. Now, in the original 6, they capture some kind of energy cube from one of the Wargonthian spaceships and use Murdermax's power and another alien to create the orb. Which I've never said where the orb is from. And with that orb, they summon 6 others to help them. Or 5 others, maybe. Because Murdermax counts as 1. And those 5 are gathered, people who were attacked and fallen and hurt and crippled and almost left for dead. So they team up and stop the Wargonthians back in that time. But they perish, and somehow they send the orb out into space, but it does land back on Etheria somewhere in the ocean. And then centuries later, Chrysilla's her first teammate, finds it and gives them their powers in the present day. Well, in this story, Carlina and 5 others land on Etheria just maybe a week or so after the Wargonthians invaded. So Murdermax and King Tatamus have yet to find this energy cube and create this orb to summon others. But in a weird twist of fate, Carlina is one of 6. So there's 6 people from the Zalaverse, the Zala galaxy. And if you haven't guessed, Zala is my name backwards. Gotta throw my stuff in there somewhere. And so they wind up on the planet and decide to help them. Stop the Wargonthians. Because they're the good guys. Merluna. Yep, she was one of them. You saw I drew her early on last year. She's the Moon Guard. She's part of the story. And I have other characters. A giant guy named Ganton. A fast guy modeled after my friend Michael Block. Call himself Redline. He has super speed. Because he was into Redline bikes. Centipede, who I'm calling Krildor. He's the brother of Millipede, Mayakai, who I did a drawing of a while ago. And Dextra Olin. She is a warrior, almost in the vein of an Amazon. She's a Valorian. That's what her race of warrior sisters are. The story mainly focuses on her. I drew Dextra Olin a long time ago, but I will draw her again. So yeah, I have them having to team up and figure out a way to stop these Wargonthians. Because the Wargonthians thrive in water. And their plan is to flood the planet. Is it called terraforming or is it aquaforming if they do it with water? Please, inquiring minds need to know. Yeah, with her hair, I just kind of kept playing around with it. I really wanted it to be more puffy. Wanted to have this kind of wavy, curly hair. It looks kind of cool on her. But as I was doing it, I'm like, wait a second, the horns are going to be lost. See, they're too small. So and just start all over again. Sometimes you got to do that. So I decided to make the horns a little longer. The way I see it, if you kind of line up, kind of do a diagonal line from where the horn starts to the edge of her eyebrow near the nose, that's where things should line up, I think. So that was a little better. I like the curve in the horn instead of just these little spiky buds. Hope your creative efforts are going well this week. You're doing something like this. Hey, share what you got. I really would like to see what you do if anybody's watching this. I know I get like 10 views, 19 views sometimes. Yeah, I'm not even close. But, I just hope people get something out of this. All right, just little refinements and erasing. And now, what time is it? It's time to move on to one of my favorite parts, right? Well, I'm going to add her clothes. I have to add the clothes. And so from one of these, I got kind of inspiration to do this kind of vest. This little top. I would say like it's kind of sports bra, but it's kind of more like a leather top. And then this other drawing showed them with like kind of this belt buckle that has kind of this nice design, almost like a saddlebag in a way. I hate to say that, but yeah. Maybe she could carry her pan flute in there. Or maybe she'll be carrying some Peter Pan peanut butter. Why would she do that, man? I don't know. She might. Maybe she likes peanut butter. As I've said, with many of these characters, I started off with a drawing. Like, oh, that's cool. Now, as I'm doing this, they have to have a personality. What do they like? Are they very sensitive? Are they very disciplined? Are they cold, calculating? Or warm and fuzzy? Are they scared? Are they trying to hide their emotions? Are they conflicted? All these things you got to think of when you're creating these characters. Because now, if you're writing for them, you got to make them exciting. Like, why would you keep them in the story if there's nothing worth writing about the character? We'll see on the planet she's from, Gaia Nora. It's very like fairy tale, mythological, magical based, and all that. It's a very lush, pretty planet. And of course, she is one with nature, and she can communicate with animals, which will be very helpful when they take on the Warganthians. She'll be able to communicate with some of the animals on Etheria. Rally their help. Good old simplifying line. That helps me so much. As always, I appreciate the support. If you do watch this, please like and subscribe. It really helps. Right? That's what they say. I know I'm a small fish in a huge, gigantic, monstrous pond, but sometimes you gotta answer the muse. I keep hearing a voice in my head saying, create, keep creating, keep creating. And this idea came to me to start doing these videos. It'll be a year in March that I started these. Wow. Insane. I just decided to give her this bracelet too, because initially she didn't have this. Her whole top was just skin covered by her hair. I'm like, this is nice. Just even like the little belt buckle thing would just give a little transition from her human side to her goat side. These lips drive me crazy. I have to do some videos where I work just on a face, right? But in these videos, I do hope to get you a little acquainted with these characters. See, Carlina is very playful. She loves nature. She's connected to it. And just this face. The features seem so harsh. Narrow her face a little bit. You don't want there is a distance between the bottom of the lip and the bottom of the chin, but not too much. I had to do a lot of adjusting here. And she's gonna feel sad. She may feel a little hopeless, knowing that the thing went with the fight to save the universe. Everybody gets scattered throughout different time dimensions and realities, not knowing if their friends and family are still alive. So of course you feel a little hopeless because you don't know how you're going to get back. You don't even know how you got there, and the odds of you finding your way back are almost impossible because you're in a completely different timeline, reality, universe. All right, time to do. I'm going to label my layers of horn, hair, and Carlina lines. And you know, it's time to do those details. So here we go. Do some adjustments here and there because the eye looks a little silly. It's good, you know, you can always pull them out, those lines out a little bit more, and then just erase them if they're one of the best things about the digital realm. You know, sometimes I forget that eyes fill up, well, pupils fill up most of the eye when you look at somebody. But when you're drawing, you kind of want to have some expression. I'm rereading some Flash comics and the artist Scott Collins. When someone's like really surprised or shocked, he draws these little dots as their pupils. The irises completely disappear, but it's effective. His art's a very interesting mix of almost anime and gritty artwork. It's really good. And great writing by Jeff Johns. He's one of my comic book writing heroes. I read his stuff and it's just amazing. Each character has such a their own unique voice, and you need it, you know, especially in team books. And that's what I try to do here. It's funny as I write this, you know, some characters have more lines than others and more dialogue, but they'll have their chance. And each one has their special part. You know, I'm putting these people on planets. I would write a list of all of them. I'm like, okay, it would be cool to see this one teamed up with this one because they seem kind of like opposite. This one may be too serious. This one might be flighty and it might cause them to butt heads. This person's resistant to do a team up or help this planet that they're stranded on. Some just want to go home. They're scared. Some are grateful to meet new people. So that's the beauty of it. You have all this material to work with. I mean, really, being around people and all of a sudden getting blindsided and stranded in space in different galaxies, that's got to be scary. And not knowing if you make it back and if the people you care about are still alive. But for now, I have Carlina running, actually like mid-run, leaping into the air, running into the woods for fun. She's got to get her steps in. And she can make some serious strides with those goat legs. Gain some serious speed. Well, let's say, well, how fast can she go? She's got a momentum. I say she could go maybe 50 miles an hour. That's fast. But she could. Not as fast as Redline, but hey, I'm still keeping that name for him. not to get too sidetracked. Here I used, I think, the airbrush, huh? Just to do a little shadow underneath her hoof, erasing the excess. Now that I put on its, I think I put that on its own layer, yeah. So it won't interfere. But I didn't want to do the lines, I just wanted to do something that's a little more, can't be too muddy looking, but I just wanted something there underneath her hoof, because drawing the lines, in the digital world, it's annoying. With a pencil, I have a little more fun. Here, I think I went to, did I go to the pencil? Yeah, I did the pencil and just kind of used that because it's a little more gritty and chalky. Like, that'll work. And yes, I did some photo reference of hooves. That's kind of the beauty of the world we live in. You can call up images of anything and use it as a reference. Very helpful. I wrote most of these stories in notebooks. And now I'm going back for the second draft and writing them in Word. Rereading what I've done, and there's some good stuff there. Fortunately, with some of these, I wrote a few stories in one notebook. As I started progressing, I said, you know what? One notebook will be dedicated to one story. So if I want to do rewrites and whatnot, it's there, and I can look back at what I wrote and say, make some adjustments, fine-tune things. Again, I start with the brain dump. I initially was going to have another story with Warganthians. Because in my Squadron 6 story, I had an idea of some bad guy sends them back in time so the modern-day Squadron 6 meets the OG 6. And now the Squadron 6 has to find a way back. And I had an idea where there was an alternate timeline where the Warganthians won. They flooded the planet, and there was a few handful of survivors, and one of them was the wizard, Magazar. Or is he a mage? Or is he an archmage? But I said, that's too much story going on. Here I did my little cloud effect to make like she's kicking the dust up. Yeah. Initially, I took that, there's the ground brush. I added a little too much. It was fun to do that. And then I just started playing around with some leaves and stuff. But you'll see, there's a final result, and this is it. I took a leaf one and just put it on the side and warped some things to just give it a little more movement. As you can see, I added a little more stuff to her top. Give it a little more design. Yeah, it just seemed too plain. So you find a few things here and there, and this is the final result. Add a little more details to her fur, because she does have it. So there's Carlina. Pretty cool, huh? It's fun drawing her. Took a long time, but it was fun. So hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you on the next video. Until then, keep creating.